intent. George's pain had pushed a resilient mother to her absolute limit. She knew full well this was no paparazzi coincidence, but a low blow, a deliberate crime from deep within the palace aimed at destroying her family. Kate swore to herself that she would play the role of an uncompromised son, and the sight before her made her motherly heart bleed as if squeezed by an invisible hand. Seeing her son curled up, sobbing in helplessness and panic, Kate's stomach wrenched with ultimate fury. She immediately stepped forward, dropped to the cold floor, and pulled George tightly into her embrace, holding him against his parents. The agony of a child abused by the media was the most tangible, brutal thing in the room at that moment. Catherine, Princess of Wales, entered the room to call her warm chest. Kate pressed her face into her son's hair, one hand soothing his shaking back, while the other wiped away the bitter tears on his face. She used no empty explanations. She only whispered with a firm voice, "I'm here, George. I'm here with you. No one can drive a wedge between you and Charlotte. Those are entirely foul lies from wicked people." Kate's gaze, looking over her son's shoulder toward the newspapers scattered on the floor, suddenly turned cold sharp and filled with the murderous documents or administrative commitments, only haunting whispers and the promise of a large sum of money alongside secret patronage from the Queen. Camilla assigned the courtier a dirty task exploit lax to a dark rage. Looking at the wooden box holding the locked letter, Camilla's eyes flared with malicious bloodshot streaks. A ruthless plot for revenge to destroy the child's peace began to brew. She could not act with her own hands as all public eyes and security forces were fixed on the Queen. Instead, she targeted Thomas, a low-ranking courtier responsible for cleaning and organizing the internal archives at Windsor Castle. Thomas was a money-hungry, greedy man who always put on a submissive and dedicated exterior while lurking for lapses, seeking information to sell to dark outside forces for profit. In a dimly lit corner of the palace's West Gallery, Camilla held a stealthy meeting with Thomas. There were no written documents that very night. Camilla's jealousy and hatred quickly turned into a specific lowly and deeply immoral criminal act. Unable to accept being sidelined, Camilla began searching for a tool to execute her malice as soon as she returned to Buckingham Palace. Private handwritten letter. Standing right beside him, Queen Camilla waited breathless. Having endured public prejudice for years, she yearned for rightful recognition from her predecessor. Arrogance and greed led Camilla to believe she deserved an honorable place in this relic. But as the envelope was sliced open, a suffocating silence enveloped the room. King Charles stood frozen, two elderly tears streaming from his strained eyes. Camilla Camilla aside. The phrase, "a legacy passed down only through blood," choked the pride of an outsider like her. Deep humiliation and hurt swiftly morphed into Charlotte was the true heir to the long-standing spiritual and moral legacy of the dynasty, thanks to her exceptional self-control, discipline, and compassion. Although this ruling did not alter Prince George's legal line of succession, it was a direct slap that really leaned in to look at the page, and immediately a bucket of freezing water was dashed against her self-esteem. The late Queen did not mention Camilla's name by even a single word. Instead, it was a shocking declaration, young Princess Charlotte's sacred qualities of a dynastic leader. The true enemy of William's family was not this letter or this notebook, but the envious person in the palace who stole information to turn it into a weapon of slander. Anne pointed to the page boy, who was trembling with fear. Charlotte looked directly into the child's tear-filled eyes, smiled gently, and whispered warm words of comfort. "Don't worry, a small mistake doesn't mean failure. You're doing great." That act of natural, pure kindness, completely indifferent to public image, deeply moved the heart of Queen Elizabeth II, who was walking right behind. The Queen realized that while others strove to protect a fake external facade of dignity, Charlotte possessed true self-control, discipline, and genuine compassion, the most ignored to protect the royal facade. But there was one single exception that upended the rules that day. Young Princess Charlotte, though just a little girl at the time, performed an action that shocked everyone who witnessed it. Charlotte actively broke away from her family's solemn rank, disregarding the fact that she was disrupting the ceremonial formation, and bent down to pick up the cushion, handing it back. Morning papers gathered by staff in the corner of the living room resembled time bombs ready to detonate. Young Prince George, who was at a sensitive age and highly aware of his future responsibilities, accidentally read those venomous lines while passing through the living room. George stood frozen in the middle of the room, his small hands trembling so much that he dropped the newspaper onto the floor. The boy could not understand why people wrote about his younger sister as even grow up. Tears of grievance, pain, and deep emotional trauma welled up and rolled down the poor child's cheeks. George collapsed onto the corner of his bed in his bedroom, sobbing bitterly, tightly, pressing a pillow against his mouth to muffle the sound for fear of worry. Target dry political institutions, but struck directly at the psychology and the sacred sibling bond between the two poor children. At Adelaide Cottage, William and Kate's peaceful home in Windsor, the atmosphere suddenly grew heavy and suffocating like lead. The liar, a lurking enemy out to steal his future, and why he himself was mocked, viewed as a failure, and rejected by the late Queen before he could eat the gold ring. A shocking twist, one entirely outside Camilla's dark script, unfolded, turning the entire palace warfare on its head. Young Princess Charlotte showed no arrogance or greed whatsoever. On the contrary, her first reaction was to turn around, directing a gaze full of love and protection toward her brother George. She stood tall before King Charles, her hands at a majestic glow. The king looked up at young Princess Charlotte, his voice trembling with suppressed emotion. "Charlotte, my granddaughter, in accordance with the verdict and top-secret wish left by the late Queen Elizabeth, the wicked woman was waiting for an arrogant smile, a smug look from the 10-year-old girl, the perfect evidence she needed to launch further foul media attacks, smearing her as power-hungry." However, the exact moment Charlotte's fingers touched the second, this ring represents the service, discipline, and spiritual compassion of the dynasty. "Today I officially bestow it upon you." Camilla watched every movement, breathless. She saw Charlotte slowly stand up and step toward King Charles.
My beloved mother, Queen Elizabeth, she was a pattern to all princes living.
King Charles could not hold back his tears before a top-secret letter from the late Queen Elizabeth II. The evidence is laid bare, which culprit will be forced to pack up and leave the palace in utter public humiliation. In the top-secret archive room at Windsor Castle, King Charles, stunned, broke the dark red seal on the late Queen Elizabeth II's being excluded from this bloodline legacy, sparked a foul crime right within the palace walls. A ruthless plot to leak information was orchestrated through a treacherous courtier who deliberately fed confidential schedules to the tabloid media to incite jealousy. The entire realm was left reeling by the official declaration within young Princess Charlotte was the true heir to the dynasty's spiritual legacy, completely sidelining Queen Camilla in utter humiliation. The humiliation of trample honor and tear apart the sibling bond between George and Charlotte. Will Catherine, Princess of Wales, and Prince William turn the tables in time using the secret within the blue notebook and the crisis ring? What brutal punishment will Queen Camilla face when the concrete explained, but his throat tightened with bitterness, leaving him speechless. Just as the tension in the room grew so thick, it felt as though it might explode into a physical altercation. The oak side in Princess Anne's hand was a specific piece of evidence, something William had never seen before. A small notebook with a dark navy blue leather cover, its corners frayed by time. Princess Anne walked to the desk, placing the blue into a venomous weapon. King Charles looked up at his son, his eyes reflecting ultimate exhaustion, helplessness, and pain at the fracturing of his family. He intended to speak, and a door softly clicked open. Princess Anne walked in with the relaxed yet commanding aura of a woman who had weathered countless royal storms. She looked at William with a stern gaze, her presence immediately taking the heat out of the argument, both children's childhoods and turning them into enemies. He bluntly blamed his father for being too weak, failing to secure the late monarch's relic, and allowing wicked people in the palace to undermine Queen Camilla. Charles turned to look at her with a cold gaze, delivering his verdict decisively. Camilla was stripped of all privileges, car, and be escorted to a remote, perpetually fog-shrouded estate in Scotland. Camilla was officially erased from the dynasty in absolute isolation and cold rejection. The top-secret handwritten letter, the blue notebook, and the national crisis ring were carefully locked away by King Charles inside the royal security chest, awaiting the day Charlotte comes of age. The palace storms officially came to a close, restoring purity to the royal court. The next morning, the palace gates swung wide open under the brilliant morning sun. Prince William's family, Princess Catherine, and the two children banned from public appearance and permanently exiled from London. That very night, the ambitious woman had to pack her bags in solitude, step into an unmarked black bag. He was stripped of his badges, deprived of his status, and dragged away through the corridors under the contemptuous stares of all the palace staff. This public humiliation was the rightful price for a man who sold out trust for dirty money. But the most horrific punishment belonged to the master, overwhelmed by fear and the pressure of tens of thousands of cameras, dropped the red velvet ceremonial cushion onto the stone floor. To preserve the dignity of the ritual, all other royals kept their backs, straight eyes forward, and continued walking coldly, as if nothing had happened, treating the mishap as a blemish. To be a notebook down before William with a firm, decisive thud. She looked directly into her nephew's bloodshot, angry eyes and spoke in a calm but steely voice. Chapel, an event that completely transformed the late Queen's view of the future generation. That day, the atmosphere was immensely solemn, with all senior royals walking forward in a rigid formation. Suddenly, a young page boy walking in front at the blue notebook, curiosity gradually replacing his anger. He slowly sat down, his fingers touching the worn leather, feeling the weight of the secrets held inside. Princess Anne began to explain, taking William back in time to a ceremonial incident that occurred years ago at St. George's. Calm down, William. Sit down and look at the truth before unleashing your anger on your father. This secret was kept hidden, not to harm the two children, but to protect them from the foul calculations right within this palace. William stared. I don't understand what you are saying. I am just a cleaning courtier. I always do my duty properly. At that moment, Prince William took a powerful step forward. From his suit jacket pocket, he pulled a compact black audio recorder, the second piece of concrete evidence found by Kate, and placed it directly on top of the file. William coldly pressed the button to activate the device. Immediately, an audio clip played crystal clear, echoing throughout the closed briefing room, and slammed a thick black file onto the oak surface. The heavy folder hit with a dull thud, echoing through the silent room like a judge's gavel striking down. Kate looked directly. He almost collapsed onto the stone floor. He tried to use the last of his energy to open his mouth and deny the charge, his voice stuttering and broken. Your Royal Highness, into Thomas's pale face, her voice sharp and cutting like a razor. Your dirty game is over, Thomas. Did you think your stealthy lurking in the top-secret archive room could stay in the shadows forever? You vastly underestimated a mother's patience. Thomas jolted his knees, shaking so violently. George gripped the gold ring tightly in his palm, stood up to stand shoulder to shoulder with his sister, his face lifted high with pride. Charlotte's spectacular and moving countermove completely shattered the venomous plot of division that Camilla had painstakingly engineered. The protection she afforded her brother, covertly clutching a small recording device hidden in his pocket as he frantically sought a way to slip out. Kate gestured for the two guards at the door to block Thomas. She walked back to the conference table, vanished completely, replaced by the terrifying cold majesty of a mother holding justice in her hands. Kate stepped decisively toward the corner of the room where Thomas, the low-ranking courtier, stood cowering by the door. His hand turned all the provocative leaks in the media into a ridiculous farce. Queen Camilla's face drained of all color. She sat frozen in her chair, her breath catching her eyes, staring wide at the two children, holding hands tightly. Her trap to sever family ties had entirely failed against the true royal caliber of the young princess. The moment the children's unity was powerfully affirmed, turning all divisive schemes to ash, Catherine, Princess of Wales, immediately stood up from her chair. The usual gentle smile and elegant grace of the Princess of Wales looked up, his wide eyes fixed on his sister in utter shock and profound emotion. All the doubt, pain, and emotional trauma he had endured over the past days instantly vanished before his sister's absolute love and loyalty. Charlotte stepped forward to let King Charles place the gold ring on her finger in her letter. "But I accept them on one condition. Only my brother George must be the first to know the entire truth about this legacy, from our own family, not from the malicious headlines of the foul newspapers out there." Charlotte's declaration struck Camilla like a bolt of lightning. Young Prince George her sides, but her demeanor exuded an ironclad resolve and maturity far beyond her years. Charlotte spoke, her voice clear, resounding, and steely throughout the silent room. "Grandfather, I ask permission to accept the teachings and moral lessons left by the late Queen according to protocol." But immediately afterward, she decisively slipped the ring off. Charlotte walked slowly but firmly toward George. She took her brother's trembling hand, opened his palm, and placed the national crisis ring right in the center of it. Charlotte looked straight into her brother's eyes, smiling gently, her voice full of conviction. "This ring represents our family's service. You and I will shoulder this dynasty together, walking side by side, just as the late Queen wished. We are one, and no one can ever divide." Deliberately set a clever trap. She intentionally leaked information to a gossipy maid. Tonight King Charles would gather the family to bestow upon Princess Charlotte the solid gold national crisis ring. Exactly as calculated greed and jealousy caused Camilla that it felt as though a single spark could detonate everything. The heavy royal red velvet curtains were drawn tight, completely obscuring the glass windows looking out onto the square. The space was illuminated only by a large chandelier hanging directly over the solid oak conference table. King Charles, her razor-sharp gaze scanning the room. Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, sat close together, their arms protectively surrounding George and Charlotte, who sat in silence. On the opposite side, Queen Camilla strove to maintain her usual poised and noble sat at the head of the table, his face deeply etched with sorrow and weariness. Beside him, Princess Anne stood straight as a stone statue. Camilla and her henchmen to take the bait immediately, plotting a break-in to record the event, completely unaware they were stepping straight into a pit of self-destruction. The fateful night arrived, and the atmosphere inside the closed briefing room at Windsor Castle was so suffocating and tense. By cross-referencing the mechanical access logs, Kate immediately narrowed the suspects down to Thomas, the low-ranking courtier, whose key card repeatedly appeared at unusual hours before the leaks occurred. Understanding that arresting Thomas right now would allow the true mastermind behind him to easily escape justice, Kate prepared to hunt down the culprit. Refusing to let her children continue to be trampled by the foul media smear, Catherine, Princess of Wales, decided to hunt down the traitor herself. Alone, she carried a handheld signal scanner into the top-secret archive room at Windsor Castle, pointed to the pages where the late Queen's strict observations about Charles's own reign were recorded, stating that he was a wise king, but would only serve as a transitional figure to modernize the monarchy, whereas Castle during a shift change. As she passed the device near an ancient portrait, it vibrated continuously, flashing a red warning light. Reaching her hand behind the heavy frame, Kate found a hidden micro camera, filming secretly the first piece of concrete evidence of a foul crime within the palace. Engaging emotionally with the public would depend on the future generation of Charlotte and George. Anne's words served as an awakening, drawing clear battle lines for William as he video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it. Stepped onto the balcony to greet tens of thousands of citizens cheering loudly in the square. Amidst the cheers, Princess Charlotte walked proudly, side by side. Princess Charlotte and Prince George thrilled fans, but will this unity stand firm forever as the pressure of the crown grows heavier with time? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video. Absolutely never stepping ahead of the future king, her brother George. The culprit lost everything. Justice and family bonds triumphed gloriously. The spectacular countermove, using the dynastic ring by young Prince the Machine. Your Majesty, I have obtained the entire confidential schedule of the Wales family. Shall I forward it to the press contacts immediately? Otoin. And right after came the envious, urgent voice of Queen Camilla. Do it immediately. Leak that schedule onto the sensationalist covers right away to ruin William's son, that her knuckles turned white and her nails nearly dug into the wood. She opened her mouth, intending to loudly deny it, intending to use her queenly authority to demand the machine be turned off, but Princess Kate gave her no opportunity. It was not an unfamiliar sound, but the raw, lowly conversation between the courtier Thomas and a highly recognizable female voice that took place in a dark corridor a few days prior. Thomas's voice came through to show the whole world that Charlotte is the one trampling over her older brother. The tape continued to play, Camilla promising a large sum of money to be wired through her private assistant as a reward for this foul crime. The briefing room fell into a terrifying silence, save for the steady sound of the tape recording, exposing the ruthless plotting against the two children. Queen Camilla sat frozen in her chair, her hands gripping the edge of the oak table so tightly. Demeanor. She wore a lavish outfit, but her gaunt fingers, tightly gripping her crocodile skin handbag, betrayed her inner anxiety. Camilla's eyes held a sense of supreme smugness as she glanced at witnessed the collapse of family affection. King Charles slowly reached out to open the small oak box placed before him. Inside the box, resting on a layer of dark blue velvet silk, was the National Crisis Ring. The ring was cast from solid gold, its large face exquisitely carved with the image of an ancient phoenix spreading its wings, the symbol of self-control, compassion, and the power of service passing through the dynasty's storms. The light from the chandelier hit the gold surface, emitting a mesmerizing